So it's getting to be every conspiracy theory you hear nowadays isn't a conspiracy theory. They're just more of a spoiler alert. Because remember when the conspiracy theorists were saying, oh, they're going to use this COVID stuff to track us? They're going to use our vaccine passports to track. You're crazy conspiracy theorists. CDC tracked millions of phones to see if Americans followed COVID lockdown orders.
Wow.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention bought access to, by the way, tip of the hat to the Joseph Cox who wrote this. They did it. They think they did a Freedom of Information request, and I think they got, so tip of the hat for Joseph Cox. There's also a little propaganda in here. I'll show you. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention bought access to location data harvested from tens of millions of phones in the United States to perform analysis of compliance with curfews, track patterns of people visiting K through 12 schools, and specifically monitor the effectiveness of policy in the Navajo Nation according to the CDC documents. The documents also show that although the CDC used COVID-19 as a reason to buy access to the data more quickly, it intended to use it for more general CDC purposes. Location, so not for the emergency? Location data is information on a device's location sourced from the phone, which can then show where a person lives, where they work, and where they went. The CDC's getting that on you. That sort of data that CDC bought was aggregated, meaning it was designed to follow trends that emerged from the movement of groups of people. But researchers have repeatedly raised concerns with how location data can be de-anonymized, whatever that word is.
Anonymized.
De-anonymized?
Yeah.
And used to track specific people. The documents reveal the expansive plan the CDC had last year to use location data from a highly controversial data broker. Where'd they get this data from? They got it from a place called SafeGraph. And they paid them $420,000 for access to 1 year of data. And guess who is a big investor in this company called SafeGraph? Well, Peter Thiel and the former head of the Saudi intelligence are among its investors. What? Google banned this company from their Play Store in June. What? And this is the company the CDC's working with. They're too toxic for Google. The COVID-19 pandemic as a whole has been a flashpoint in a broader culture war. So this is the part of the story I start to get pissed off about. He said a broader culture war with conservatives and anti-vaccine groups protesting government mask and vaccine mandates. No, they were freedom and liberty conscious people on the left and the right. They weren't anti-vax. They were anti-mandate and mask. That's totally different than being anti-vaccine. But they can't write a story without saying that people who were against the mandates were anti-vax. They can't write a story without... That's propaganda. And so shame on our good friend, Mr. Cox, for including that. That's propaganda. That's not a fact. So Richard Wolff was against the vaccine mandate. He's a Marxist professor, one of the most famous in the country. Is he a conservative? Is he anti-vax? I'm a lefty. I'm a big, crazy Bernie Sanders, former Bernie Sanders supporter. I'm to the left of Bernie Sanders. Does that make me a conservative? And I got both jabs. I'm fully vaxxed. So this is propaganda, and that fucking drives me crazy. And so do better, Mr. Cox. They've also expressed a specific paranoia that vaccine passports would be used as a tracking or surveillance tool, framing vaccine refusal as a civil liberties issue, because it is. And now we know why, because of the story that you broke. You found out that what they were saying was fucking true. You want to stop calling them at conspiracy theorists? No, because I bet when they said that, Vice did call them conspiracy theorists. And then Vice confirmed it, and you still call them anti-vax conservatives.
How is it being framed like isn't it a civil liberties issue? If you're for
of course it is.
It's still a civil liberty issue if you're for it.
Of course it is.
Not like framing it, that's what it is out of the box.
Here they go on to smear RFK Jr. RFK Jr.'s Children's Health Defense, one of the more influential and moneyed anti-vaccine groups. They're not an anti-vaccine group. They're for choice, and they're for transparency. Has promoted fears that digital vaccine certificates could be used to surveil citizens. You mean they have promoted legitimate concerns? You mean they've pushed legitimate, they've raised legitimate concerns. But the way Mr. Cox, who wrote this, said it, he said they promoted fears. They're fear mongers. These anti-vaccine groups. So this again, more propaganda. So Vice can't even, there's nothing Vice can do that it doesn't have CIA propaganda or establishment propaganda in it, and here you're seeing it. So this is a great service that they're providing by doing this freedom of information request. So we found out about this, but how about that doesn't inform them one fucking bit?
He's providing context.
Yeah.
It's amazing that, you have all these brainwashed liberals that are like worshiping the CDC when they're working with this safeguard company. And then they're going out and criticizing Elon Musk for trying to bring free speech to like Twitter, And then the other thing is, why is the United States and Canada, why have they gone down this deranged path of labeling anyone who speaks out about our civil liberties as being a dangerous alt-right conspiracy theorist? That you mentioned Richard Wolff and yourself as two lefties who have, been speaking truth on this matter. But you can look in France, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, the socialist there, or Jeremy Corbyn in the UK, or the Communist Party of the Russian Federation. There's lefties all across the world that have figured this out. But for some reason in the United States, we've gone down this path. It's insane.
Even who's the Greece? How do you say his name?
I don't know Greece. Jean-Luc Mélenchon, is that who you're talking about? The guy
who was their finance minister.
Giannis Varoufakis.
Yes, Giannis Varoufakis.
Yeah, even he's not,
he's against
kind
mandates.
Of liberal in some respects, and he even has figured this out.
Yes. So they go from calling RFK Jr. anti-vax, the fearmongers, to then QAnon promoter Dustin Nemos wrote on Telegram in December that vaccine passports are a Trojan horse being used to create a completely new type of controlled and surveilled society in which the freedom we enjoy today will be a distant memory.
Is he saying that they're right? Is that what this article is? They're all right?
Is that maybe that's what Mr. Cox is doing, who wrote this article. Maybe he's like, look, we call these people all these names, and they were correct. In that case, tip of the hat to you. Against the inflamed backdrop, that backdrop of QAnon and RFK Jr. actually getting it right. It's weird that you would mention that. It's against that inflamed backdrop. We use a cell phone location data for such a wide variety of tracking measures, even if effective for becoming better informed on the pandemic spread or for informing policy, is likely to be controversial. It's also likely to give anti-vaccine groups a real-world data point on which to pin their darkest warnings. Again, they're not anti. He just can't stop it.
They always got to put in, this is helping our enemies.
That's right.
That's why
it's exactly right. Instead of our enemies are the CDC. Our enemies aren't the fucking anti-vax. They're not anti-vax. Again, that's all. They only know one way to write. You talk about fucking groupthink in journalism. Jesus Christ, they know who pays their checks. Do they know who signs their checks? That's what this is.
I think the great Anand Parak called it habits of mind.
Yeah. Anas Jirahandis called it habits of mind.
Oh, is that what it is?
So he's like, don't make these people correct. No, they were correct. More recent Recently, SafeGraph has started offering aggregated transaction data showing how much consumers typically spend at specific locations under the spend. So they can they'll tell people like, hey, how much do you want to know how much Jimmy Dore spends at Ralph's at the superstore? How much he spends at that restaurant? How much does he spend at his doctor? How much did he spend at the pharmacy? How much does he spend at his pot store? Don't you want to know how much he spends at his pot store? They'll tell them. SafeGraph sells its products to a wide range of industries such as real estate, insurance, advertising, and people who want to kill you. Edwards pointed to a search result in SafeGraph's data portal that displayed data related to a specific doctor's office, showing how they finely tuned the company's data can be. You want people to have access to the government to know which doctors you're going to, and for what? Theoretically, an attacker could use the data to then attempt to unmask the specific users, something which researchers... Oh, I don't know. That got cut off. Oh, too bad. I put this together. Can only yell at myself. The CDC documents show that the agency bought access to SafeGraph's U.S. core place data, weekly patterns data, and neighborhood patterns data. So the CDC is buying these documents. The last product includes information such as home dwelling time. They're going to tell the government how much time you spend at home. And is aggregated by state and census block. SafeGraph offers visitor data at the census block group level that allows for extremely accurate insights related to age, gender, race, citizenship status, income, and more. One of the CDC documents says. So there it is. They're doing it. It happened. So all the crazy anti-vax conspiracy, they're the canary in the coal mine warning everybody. And Vice is only about 18, 20 months or maybe 3 years late to the party.
You know what really sticks out to me is the fact that all that like data harvesting that everybody, you know, much like abortion, they've done nothing about the whole time.
Right.
Like the worry about the government doing it, all the government has to do is hire one of these people that are doing it to you every single day.
That's right.
And then they can say they didn't do it. It's amazing. It's a great setup.
And where's the ACLU, Jackson? The ACLU is busy being captured by liberal dollars. So when Trump got elected, millions and millions of dollars flowed into the ACLU. And what did the ACLU become? They then became a partisan organization.
Yep. All these democratic institutions, or these Democratic Party institutions rather, have. I mean, like when we were going through the DHS the Mayorkas story earlier, I was thinking like, this kind of reminds me of when we had James Clapper go before Congress and testify before Ron Wyden about the NSA spying operation on millions of Americans. And the Democrats nowadays not only seem to just be openly kind of allowing this to go through and happen, they're the ones who are actually cheerleading this.
Right.
And, you know, they're the ones who are funding this and operating these systems that are cracking down on our basic privacies.
They will
change.
Joe Biden voters are cool with this.
Yeah.
They're okay with
they've bought the lie that somehow stripping your basic rights is actually going to give everyone more security and more rights. It's the biggest con that we've ever seen.
Like how we helped Iraq. You're always saying we should do more for here. You're the one who wanted them to do stuff for us.
We're doing live stand-up shows in Cleveland, Columbus, Pittsburgh, Des Moines, Omaha, Kansas City, Las Vegas, all over the country. Go to jimmydorcomedy.com for a link for tickets. And single tickets now available at all venues. So if you tried to buy one before and you couldn't, single tickets are now available. Plus, while you're at jimmydorcomedy.com, why don't you become a premium member? Sign up to our mailing list so when they cancel us, we can still stay in touch.